we're going to really be continuing practice with what we really did in the first lesson. So plugging in numbers for x. That's all we're going to be doing today. But we're going to really be taking like two problems and putting them together into one. We will be adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing functions. The work is not any harder than what you've done before. So this first example up top, I've given you two functions. I've given you f and g, and I ask you to find this. That is f plus g of 4. What that means is you're going to do f of 4 plus g of 4. We're going to do two different problems, and we're going to add our answer together. So to find f of 4, what am I going to do with the 4? Put it in the what?
4 times by 3.
Yep. I'm going to be putting it in the x spot, which means I'm going to be multiplying it by 3. So I'm going to do 3 times 4 minus 7. So in your calculator, you don't write this first part. You only write what comes after the equals. So 3 and then parentheses 4 minus 7. Just type it in how I wrote it. Don't try to use the multiply, because that might mess you up on some later questions. Okay. And we get 5. And then you're going to do g of 4. So here's g of x. I'm going to plug in a 4 for this x. So 13 minus 2, and then in parentheses 4. So wherever I see an x, I'm going to put my 4 there in parentheses. 13 minus 2, and then in parentheses I put a 4. And I also get a 5. That's just a coincidence. You usually will not get the same number. And then my problem asks me to add them. So I'll do 5 plus 5, which is what? 10. And 10 is my final answer. So are there any questions? So number 1, I've given you two functions here in the directions. You're going to find f of negative 2 plus g of negative 2. So I'm going to take negative 2, plug it into f, take negative 2, plug it into g, and add my two answers. So let's start with f of negative 2. Now this function, there are two x's, so I'm going to put a negative 2 in for both of them. 2, and then here's my x. Instead of writing x, I'm going to put parentheses negative 2, and then has a squared. Only the number that I'm plugging in for x, that negative 2, that's the only thing that goes in the parentheses. Minus, and then negative 2, minus 12. So type this in your calculator just like it's written down. You're typing in what comes after the equals. You should get equals negative 2. Look at all those 2's. So if you didn't get negative 2 as your answer for this one, let's check. you should do 2 parentheses, negative 2, close them, squared, minus, and then I like to go ahead and put that back in parentheses, the negative 2 again. Technically, you could have done it without the parentheses, minus negative, and then minus 12, and you get negative 2. It's real easy to forget one of those negatives. You've got to be careful. Then we're going to find g of negative 2. G of x is x plus 7, so I'm going to do negative 2 plus 7, which gives me what? Anybody know?
5.
Gives me 5. And then my problem asked me to add those two numbers together. So I will do negative 2 plus 5. And that does give me 3. And 3 is my final answer. Are there any questions? Let's do number 2. Now this one says, this one's not already split up. Some of them I already kind of split them up for you. But this is f minus g of 8, which is really the same thing as f of 8 minus g of 8. So go ahead and see if you can find those. Alright, so f of 8. So here's my f function. Where there's an x, I'm going to put an 8. So 2, and then in parentheses 8 squared minus 8 minus 12. And what did you all get on that one? 108. Good. And then g of 8 would just be 8 plus 7, because g of 8 is x plus 7. So 8 plus 7 is what? 15. And then my problem did not ask me to add them. It asked me to subtract. So I will do 108 minus 15. And Sally, what is that? 90. Good job. Are there any questions so far? Number 3, very similar, but what am I going to do with my two answers? Multiply them. Number 4, we can wait on number 4, but when you see a fraction, that means divide. Or you could type it in as a fraction, but I will go over that one with you. Go ahead and try number 3. I am going to call on some people to give me some answers on this one. All right, you should have started, and then you should 2 parentheses negative 1 squared minus negative 1 minus 12. Just type that whole thing into your calculator. Don't try to do little bit by little bit. Type the whole thing in, just as I have it wrote down. Andrew, what did you get for this one? Negative 9. That is correct. And then you should have done g of negative 1. G of x is x plus 7. So negative 1 plus 7. Kelly, what is that? 6. Very good. And then my question actually asked me to multiply them. So I have negative 9 times 6. And Braden, do you have that answer? What is it?
Negative 54.
Perfect. It is negative 54. So if you didn't get that, first of all, did you even type anything in and try it? Make sure that when you're plugging numbers in, especially when you have negatives involved and there's exponents involved, you've got to put parentheses. Okay. That one, a lot of people would get a wrong answer there. A lot of people wouldn't get negative 9 because you don't use parentheses. You don't type it in. If you still can't figure out how to type it in and get that answer, then feel free to ask. We're going to do number 4, and then we're going to go onto the back page. So number 4 has f of 5 in a fraction over g of 5. That means divide or just type it in a fraction. Okay. So we're going to start by finding f of 5. 2 and then parentheses 5 squared minus 5 minus 12. This 5 that's in the middle, you don't necessarily have to put that in parentheses. I just did. So type that in. Ella, what is this? F5 on number 4. 33. It is 33. Okay. And then we're going to do G of 5, which is 5 plus 7. Kylie, what is that? 12. Very good. So when you go to get your answer, if it were me, I would just go ahead and type in 33 over 12. Because that's how the problem wrote it out. They wrote it as a fraction. So I would do 33 over 12. In your calculator, if you go to alpha y equals, oops, can't see it, alpha y equals, and hit enter, you can type in 33 over 12 to see if it simplifies any. And it does. It's 11 over 4. Let's say you chose to use the divide button, 33 divided by 12. That decimal's okay. If you would have wrote down 2.75, I would have counted it right. But generally, we'll probably write our answers as fractions most of the time. So if you hit math, the first option has that FRAC. That means fraction. And hit enter, and hit enter again. It'll convert it to a fraction. Are there any questions? Let's go ahead and turn to the back. And we're going to try a few of these problems. These problems look a little bit different. So let's say that you have F with parentheses, and then you have that. This is not multiplication. You're not going to find f of a number and multiply it by g of a number. In this case, the g is kind of inside of the f function. So when we're solving problems like this, you're going to do the inside first. So whatever it has on the inside, and once we get to a real example, it'll make more sense. But whatever's on the inside, you do that first. Then you plug that number in the outside. So you do the inside first, and then you plug that answer in for F. So let's look at number 7. On the inside, we have G of 5. So I'm going to do G of 5 first. My G of X function is X minus 1. So I'm going to do 5 minus 1. Sully, what is that?
4.
It is 4. Okay. Then, once I found that, I know that G of 5 equals 4. I found that. If two things are equal, is it okay for me to flip them and interchange them back and forth? If two things are equal, you can do that. So I'm going to replace where it says G of 5. If I just rewrite that as 4, because G of 5 is equal to 4, that whole thing, I found G of 5 equals 4. I'm just replacing that with 4. And so now I have to find F of 4. So this outside letter is F. I'm going to find F of 4. So whatever answer you get from the first round, you plug that in on the second round. So F of 4, I got to do 4 to the third power plus 8. So type that in. 4 to the third plus 8. Katie Lynn, do you have that?
I got 72.
You got 72, and that is correct. That is your final answer. Once you get that, you no longer have to do anything else with the 4. We don't add the 4. We don't multiply by the 4. 72 is our answer. And we're done. Any questions? Let's go on to number 8. We're going to do the inside first. So inside first, H of negative 2. So here's my H function, the 5x minus 3. I'm going to put a negative 2 in for x. So 5 times negative 2 Brody, have you typed that in yet?
Yeah, negative 13.
Yep, it is negative 13. So now, I'm going to take that negative 13. What function am I going to plug it in for?
F.
F, because F is the one on the outside. So I'm going to do f of negative 13. Shoot. That's going to be a big number. Oh, that's weird. The one I use for advanced has x squared there instead of x cubed. But we'll still use it with the cubed. Negative 13. To do an exponent, if you don't know, other than 2, this button right here above the divide sign, that lets you type in an exponent. And then you have to arrow outside of it. Plus 8. Negative 2,189 is your answer. And actually, that's a really small number, not a really big number. Any questions? All right, I'm going to do one more with you, and then I'm going to let you work on the last 3. So number 9, we do inside first, f of negative 1. This would be negative 1 cubed plus 8 type that into your calculator, parentheses, negative 1, and then outside of the parentheses your exponent of 3 plus 8. What do we get? 7. Good. So then I'm going to do g of 7. So my outside function was g, and I'm going to plug the 7 in because that's what I got the last round. Which is 7 minus 1. Rocky, what is 7 minus 1? 6. Good. And 6 is my final answer. I want you to work on questions 10, 11, and 12. So number 10, we did h of 3 first. So 5 times 3 minus 3 gives us 12. And that's what I plug into g to get my final answer of 11. If you didn't get that, double check, write it down. Number 11, you should have done f of 1 first to get 9. And so then you do h of 9, because h is your outside letter. You do that one of 9. And your answer is 42. And then you, on number 12, you did g of 1 first. That gave you 0. So then you did h of 0 to get negative 3.